creating custom Pokemon for you! Welcome back, everyone, to the show where we select lucky commenters to spin a series of random wheels that give us factors for a Pokemon that we then create just for you. It's gonna be an awesome episode today, y'all. We have 4 amazing custom Pokemon as always, but before we get started, I do have some quick reminders. First off, if you end up liking today's video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And of course, if you want a custom Pokemon for yourself, all you have to do is leave a comment under this video because I'll be randomly selecting people from this video's comments for the next episode. That's right, everyone who gets a custom Pokemon is just randomly selected from the comments. It's just most fair that way, but it also makes it way more important to subscribe with the notification bell turned on, because if you got a custom Pokemon but missed the episode, you would never even know you got one, which would suck. Don't let it happen to you. Subscribe now. And without further ado, let's get into the first Pokemon. And this one will be for Nightshark24. My sub count has definitely blown up. It's been absolutely insane. Thank all of you for that, by the way. So alright, Shark, let's start by getting the power level of your Pokemon, and you are going to be regular. There's nothing wrong with that. Now let's see how many times your Pokemon can evolve, and you are going to get 0, which actually makes you a basic Pokemon. Now let's see what typing your Pokemon's going to be. Your first type is going to be the Grass type. That is a good classic type right there. And Grass Dark type. I actually really like that type. And the last step before we see which Pokemon looks like, let's see if it has an X Factor, and you do a new mechanic. This is always the hardest one to do because it could literally go anywhere, but we're gonna make something cool, hopefully. Your Pokemon is Carmelon, the unknown Pokemon. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why does the Pokemon look like this? And I know it's a bit odd, but this is actually part of its new mechanic. You see, Carmelon actually has 3 different variations, which are wildly different in terms of battle strategy. And when Carmelon first enters the battle, it will be in this obscured form where you don't know which variation it's in until it either takes damage or is on the field for 1 full turn. That's right, this Pokemon is built around the fact that you won't know which variation it's in, and each one of its variants has a different way of punishing you for not knowing, which basically forces you into a guessing game. But let's get into these variations so I can show you what I mean. The first form of Carmelon is its tank form. This form is heavily focused on its defenses, and it also has the ability Rough Skin, which will damage enemies who try to attack it. So while it's obscured, if the Pokemon tries to attack it, they will be punished by taking the Rough Skin damage. The second form of Carmelon is its attack form. This form is very slow, but it has very high attack, which is also supported by its ability Moxie. So if the opponent avoids attacking it on the first turn, it will get off a slow but very powerful attack, which could get even worse because it has Moxie. So if it feints you with that first hit, it will now have a Moxie boost and be even more threatening. The third form of Carmelon is its speed form. As the name implies, this variant has very good speed, but more importantly, it also has access to the ability Speed Boost. Meaning again, if the opponent avoids attacking it, they will be unknowingly giving it an even higher speed stat due to the passive increase that Speed Boost will give it. And that's gonna do it for today's first Pokemon. I know this one's all over the place, but I hope you can see what I was going for with this like guessing game that the Pokemon puts the opponent in. Like on the first turn, you might want to attack into the obscured form thinking it's the speed form and you don't want it to get a speed boost. But if you attack into it and it's the defense form, you're gonna take some Rough Skin damage and be punished. But yeah, I actually ended up loving this Pokemon. I'm super curious to see how it's gonna play out in the fan-made game. I'm like wondering if it's gonna be OP or not. And for the shinies, I went with some cool colors that I thought fit the theme of each form. But now let's get into the second Pokemon. But before we do that, I have to take a quick second to tell y'all about today's video sponsor, Dimensionals. Dimensionals is an awesome new turn-based RPG that combines action-packed strategy with ultra-high replayability. It's a roguelike that has you take control of a small party of 3 heroes to battle across dimensions, defeating enemies and collecting new heroes along the way. And as a huge fan of these types of games, obviously, when I played the Dimensionals demo, there was 2 major things that I noticed right out of the gate. The first thing I noticed is that this game just oozes passion. You can tell the team that worked on it loved working on it because it shows in every detail. Like seriously, the art style is awesome and unique. It sort of feels like an early cartoon. The VFX are on point. The cutscenes look incredible. incredible, the story is intriguing, the abilities are creative, the heroes you collect are sick. Like, you can just tell everyone who worked on this game loved working on. Now, the second thing I noticed about Dimensionals was actually the difficulty. I feel like a lot of the time with games like this, you can find yourself just spamming your hardest hitting move over and over and eventually find yourself beating the entire game, but that is not going to happen in Dimensionals. When I played the demo, I quickly realized that I had to actually think about my strategy far in advance if I was going to beat the bosses, because they are no joke and there's not just one way to beat them. Like, every boss is going to be different every time because of your random selection of abilities that you're given and the heroes that you bring into the fight and things like that. So it really matters your creativity and your skill at the game, which again is not always the case with games like this, so that was very refreshing. Anyways, I've said for a really long time that I've never had a sponsor on the channel before because I'm waiting for a product that I genuinely think is good before I show it to y'all. And I can confidently say that Dimensionals is a genuinely good game, and if you enjoy this channel, you'll likely enjoy the game a lot. The game's in early access right now, so you can check it out right away using the link in my description or the pinned comment. And again, I really think you're gonna like it, and it supports the channel, so if you're interested at all, again, link in the description or the pinned comment. Big thank you to Dimensionals for sponsoring this episode, but now let's get back into the second Pokemon. And this one will be for Mr. Pasta Man. I'm glad you noticed the Pokeballs. I was worried nobody did. So alright, Pasta, let's start by getting the power level of your Pokemon, and you are going to be a starter Pokemon. That is super rare. I think we've only got like 2 of those before, so that's really cool. And it means that now we have to spin this wheel to see which type of starter you are, the fire, grass, or water type, and you are the water type starter. That's good. We didn't have one yet, so this is our first official one. But it'd be pretty boring if we just left you pure water type, so let's still spin this wheel to get a secondary typing, and we got the normal type. That is very weird. Don't get me wrong, I think the normal type's cool. Too many people hate on it. It's just weird for a starter. Definitely never happened before. The first stage of your Pokemon is Cubble, the bubble Pokemon. These Pokemon are natural land dwellers, but they do have a strange fascination with bodies of water. In fact, you can often find large groups of these Pokemon splashing around in shallow lakes. At level 17, it would evolve into Popknot. These Pokemon are known to create large bubbles around their head, which they use to store oxygen. And this allows it to stay underwater long enough to hang out with its fellow water types. At level 35, it would evolve into Coconut. These Pokemon are extremely heavy and naturally sink to the bottom of any water that they enter. And because of this, they can often be found at the deepest parts of the ocean, hibernating in the absolute darkness. And that's gonna do it for today's second Pokemon. Obviously, it's really cool to get a starter Pokemon, especially one we didn't have before. And I think at this point, we have at least one grass, fire, and water type starter, and I know these won't be the final 3, but if they were, let me know in the comments which one y'all would pick. This one was drawn by my friend DaDrake, who you can find on Instagram and YouTube, link in the description. And for the shinies, I went with some cool green colors to be sort of a reference to aliens because they're astronauts. I thought that was a cool thing. But now let's get into the third Pokemon. And this one will be for Void Guy. I'm glad you think the episodes get better every time. That's always my goal. So alright, Void, let's start by getting the power level of your Pokemon, and you are a mythical. That is actually insane. That is the third one of the entire series, so that's crazy rare. Now, mythical Pokemon usually don't evolve, but we do still spin this wheel where you have a very small chance to. You got a 1 evolution mythical Pokemon. This is very weird now. Don't get me wrong, that's still super exciting. Now let's see what typing your Pokemon will be. Your first type is actually none, which means whatever this next type is, it's your only type, and it's the dark type. This Pokemon is definitely pretty wacky, but I kind of like where it's going, honestly. And the last step, before we see which Pokemon looks like, let's see what its X factor is, and it is a signature move. Nice. Your Pokemon is Nosfertot, the Crimson Pokemon. Long ago, this Pokemon was extremely powerful and terrorized all who entered its domain. Or at least that was until one day when a large group of trainers who were fed up with this Pokemon's rampage banded together to face it in an epic battle. And Nosfertot would actually lose this battle, and after having much of its power stripped away, it was thrown into an ancient cavern, never to escape again. And in my eventual fan-made game, that's literally where you'll find this Pokemon, at the bottom of a dungeon in this weakened state. However, this Pokemon is still capable of evolving back into its powerful form, and to do that, you'll have to use its signature move. And its signature move is known as Crimson Call. This move deals 70 Dark-type damage and also heals the user for 20% of the damage dealt. But more than that, it also infects the opponent with Nosfertot's evil magic, transforming transforming them into a dark type, which could easily mess up the opponent's battle strategy if you suddenly just change their whole typing. After defeating 20 enemies using Crimson Cold, Nosferatu would evolve into Crimzatu. This Pokemon is now restored to its full menacing power and is now seeking revenge on those who sealed it away long ago. But since those people are long gone, this Pokemon has actually set its sight on anyone part of those people's bloodline, so you never know, you might be one of them. And that's gonna do it for today's third Pokemon. I feel like throughout the entire series, I kept saying the first time we get an evolution on a legendary or a mythical, it's gonna be epic. And now that it finally happened, I think it turned out sufficiently epic. Like, seriously, this is one of my favorite Pokemon of the entire series. I just love the way the design turned out, and it played into the lore really well. It was drawn by my friend Saru Bell on Instagram. Please make sure to go check him out. And for the shiny, I went with some cool blue colors because it looked awesome. But now let's get into the fourth Pokemon. And this one will be for Jake and Bake, who said they watched every episode of the Custom Pokemon series. There's 89, so that took you about an hour and a half. I appreciate it. But all right, Jake, let's start by getting the power level of your Pokemon, and you are going to be regular. Now let's see how many times your Pokemon can evolve, and you are going to get 2, which makes you a full 3-stage evolution line. Now let's see what typing your Pokemon's going to be. Your first type is going to be the Dragon type. That's awesome. A lot of people would say that's the coolest type ever. And Dragon Fairy type. That's a typing that actually doesn't exist in real Pokemon right now, so this is going to be awesome to make. And the last step, before we see what your Pokemon looks like, let's see if it has an X Factor, and none this time. The first stage of your Pokemon is Wizzelp, the bearded Pokemon. From the moment these Pokemon hatch, they look very old, which makes them incredibly cute to some and incredibly creepy to others. At level 27, it would evolve into Dralop. This Pokemon is the preferred partner of trainers practicing the arts of sorcery and magic. In fact, it's even said that running a hand through their magnificent beard is enough to give a human being temporary magic power. When exposed to a shiny stone, it would evolve into Dracarch. These Pokemon have mastered their draconic abilities as well as the mystical properties of their fairy type, making them an incredibly unique fighter whose next move can never be predicted. And that's gonna do it for today's fourth Pokemon. This one's typing was super unique, so it deserved an incredibly unique design as well, and I think a bearded dragon wizard is unique enough. It was drawn by my friend Le Petit Art on Instagram. Make sure to go check him out. And for the shiny, I went with some red colors to look like a different wizard. I don't know, I feel like wizards are always blue or red, so that made sense to me. But that's gonna do it for today's episode, y'all. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe before you go. And if you want to watch more episodes just like this one, there's a bunch in this playlist. Sorry this episode took forever to come out. I got the flu. It was horrible, but I'm back and healthy now. My voice is still a little messed up, but I'm ready to make the next episode right away. I'll see y'all when it comes out, but until then, peace.